Now I present a Denmark chef and food writer, and she's doing something that it's amazing, that it's not only talking about food, and why. This is why I think the team organizing this symposium put her in this position, and I think Trine, Hahnemann, please take the stage to present your idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm very bad with technical things, but I'm going to try. Okay, here we go. Hi, everybody. Are you inspired? Have you heard some good things? Ideas that you're going to do tomorrow to change the way we do it today? Because that's what it's all about. We are here to get ideas and thoughts about how we can do better tomorrow. But I want to talk about the democratic meal. And I put up here for you democracy. And the reason why I want to put it like this is because I don't think democracy is doing so well right now. I am personally worried about where we are right now, and I think we as a people should do something about it. Democracy means people, power, and rule. And for me, that means the people should have the power to rule. And then we have a meal. That's an occasion where food is eaten, or the other way around. And that's how it's, explained in the Oxford Dictionary, so I think that must be right. So for me, a democratic meal must be vested in the people, cooked with joy, by the people, for the people. And when we say joy, we talk a lot about, and I love the way you said about deliciousness. Because we can't have this without deliciousness. Health is not about a boring meal or a certain meal. Deliciousness is about love, flavor, and taste, and lots of that connection. Otherwise, it won't give any meaning to us. So right here we have some onions stuffed with walnuts and spinach. And I'm showing this because this is a traditional Danish dish that my grandmother would do with 100% pork, a little bit of nutmeg, and a little bit of clove, and a little bit of onion. Then my mother came in the 60s. She would take half the meat out and put vegetables into it, because we needed more vegetables, we were told, and she was a hippie, and she wanted to have carrots and lots of vegetables. And then here I am, being told we can't eat as much meat, so I've taken the meat all out. That is the journey that the food has been on in my lifetime. So here is my family. I'm not in it because I'm not born. My mother is the big girl right there, and this is her sister, and this is my grandparents. And the reason why I show you this picture is because something is happening about the way we talk about food and about how we talk about the food. Good food is for the elite, and Alice was talking about fast food for the masses and so on. My family was a working class family, and I can tell you one thing: they could cook. My grandmother, she knew everything about seasons, and she did not waste any food because she could not afford it. She put so much value into it that I knew it without she never ever telling me. I could just feel it. And when I sat down at a table with her, I was given 2 meatballs, and I never asked for a 3rd meatball because I knew I had to eat my vegetables. That is culture. And that is the culture that we have to preserve and to understand in a democratic setting. Because this is a right. This is a human right to have access to that kind of knowledge and to that kind of food, so you can cook for yourself. And you can thrive with that and have that in your life. Of course, that is the private. That is what we do at home. I have to watch the time. But as we all know, there's also a restaurant culture. And that restaurant culture is growing. So I'm going to come back to that. But a little bit about the journey. And I'm sorry this picture looks so weird, but I carry it around with me. This is me. I'm the little blonde girl in the corner. And this is my hippie parents. And they were left-wing, I tell you. And I think today they will be called extreme left-wing. But the problem is, my parents, they promised me that there would be peace, a clean environment, and equality on the planet when I would be a grown-up. And I tell my parents today, I don't think you kept your promise. But I'm very proud that you did this work. We had, like Alice was talking about, free speech. My father, who's sitting there with the dark hair, he was the chairman of the Against the Vietnam War Committee. I went to a lot of demonstrations as a little girl, but they were fighting for a cleaner planet and for more equality. And I'm very proud that I grew up in a family like that. But they changed everything. They changed the way they were married, the partners, how you saw a family. But one thing they did not change was to sit down and have a meal and talk about what is a good life. So I grew up with that, and I think that is one of the biggest privileges you can give a child, to understand what it is to sit down and share a meal and talk about what kind of life should we all live together. So this is how I try to define it, and there can be lots of other words. I don't want to say it's one specific thing. I just want to say that we need to talk about this when we talk about sustainability, both in the private home, but also in the restaurants. Because we can't only run restaurants because we know where the carrots come from, and we know where the meat is coming from, and we've talked to the farmer, and so on and on. There's an economic side to this as well. And this economic side, I believe, is a very big factor in the climate change. We can't just have growth. Of course, we need a little growth. There's growth in nature every year. The carrot needs to grow and be pulled up and grow again and so on. But we don't need abundance of things. We need to have a job where we can make a decent salary so we can buy good food and we can go home and cook it. But we also need to be able to work in an industry, which is the one I represent as a cook, where you can make a good salary, have the hours so you can go home and see your family or whatever you want to do with your free time. We need to have a balanced way of doing this, which is very, very important when we talk about sustainability, because the people is in the center of this. It's one thing about the climate change we'll have to think about. This is the humans. It is our problem. The planet will survive. It is how we survive on this planet we're talking about. How do we want to share this together, and how do we want to live with each other? Do we want to live in a society where there's room for all of us? In a diverse society where there's respect around the human being. So this is what I try to work with in my company. And I've had it for 25 years. And I serve lunch for 3,000 people a day. And it's not fine dining. But I have farm to table, and I use the same vegetables as Noma. And I know my farmers, but I'm still also dependent on the industry. We are not in a position yet where I can get around the industry and the big buyers. I'm working on it, and I have for 25 years, and I can tell you it's moving forward. And if one thing my parents really taught me by seeing the change that they enabled, that is, change can happen. You have to think, and I go back to show you the picture. My mother, when she was 18, she could not move into a flat without being married to my father because she was female. So she needed to marry him. She didn't plan that. She wanted a flat. I'm very pleased she did, because I'm here. This is one right that I can stand here. I've chosen my own career. I can get a flat and a bank account, and I don't have to ask a husband for it. Think about that. That is in 40, 50 years. I'm 50-something, yeah, so that's 50 years. That is a big change in our society that has happened. A lot of other things, organic growth of vegetables. There were no organic, there was just vegetables. So you have to be positive and think about all the things that started in the 60s and all that change that enabled. That just shows you if we do this together, we can ask for the things that we have the power to ask for and therefore rule. So going back to having a right to a good life, this is an amazing project in Copenhagen. It's Absalon's Church, it's called. It's investable. And this is a guy who made a ton of money by selling a lot of things for $2. He actually did it in a quite sustainable way. He was not only cheap products, but he decided that he wanted to spend some of his money to buy an old church and hire some people and give them a good salary and good working conditions. And then he wanted the people of the neighborhood to come and eat a meal for only 50 kroners. And that's about, I think 3-4 euros maybe. And sit down. So every night at 6 o'clock, you can go and line up to that church. And it's not a church anymore. It's what we call a gathering house where 200 people every night can sit down and eat a meal together and discuss it. But on the backside of this is people who work there, who also are part of the conversation because they can make a living when they walk out of the door and they can afford to eat there themselves. And I think that balance is very, very important when we talk about sustainable development. It needs, and we as restaurateurs and business owners, we have to think about it in our model. When we think about design and which cashier we're going to use and the logo and who's going to run the SoMe campaign and so on, we also need to think about what is going to be my employment plan. How am I going to, what are the benefits? What is the long-term retaining people here? What am I going to pay them? Are they going to get a pension? And over here you have healthcare. We don't have to think about that in Europe. It's already taken care of by the taxes. But we have to show the people who come and eat in our places that we thought about these things and that they are a part of our business plan and they are a plan also about our sustainable idea. And I will say, if we could make sure everybody on this planet could live a life like that, we would also be able to combat climate change much faster. All right, I'm on speed here. It's going well. I'm always afraid that I don't get to say all the things I want to say. So I believe that, as we've talked about, and I don't think we can disagree, and that's one of the problems about a lot of these things is that we are all together with people we more or less agree with. So I like to challenge you to go out and talk to people about this that do not agree with you. Have a coffee and make humanity rule, because most people, if they sit down and share a meal or have a coffee, they will actually, be able to agree on a lot of things about what a good life is. Sorry, there was one. There's one slide missing. That is weird. Okay. That was one with all the people that work in my company. It's gone. So what I want to end with saying is that I find, of course, we can't just solve all problems by saying we're going to sit down at long tables and talk to each other and be nice and so on and so on. There is more to it than that. But I do think as soon as we meet each other at that level and have shared a meal, there will be bigger chances we will listen to each other. But we still have to talk to our politicians and make sure that we pressure them to take the right decisions, make sure there's labor laws, minimum wage, a lot of things that politicians actually can put in place, and then we have to apply. Then we have the NGO, and I think sometimes it can be a problem that societies don't pay tax, and then very rich people, they get to put a lot of money into NGOs, and then they make decisions about what the money should go to. I think we have to have both NGO, but we also have to pay tax in our societies so the politicians have something to work with so we can make it more equal for all. And then there's civil society, and then I want to say, I don't believe that it's individually a fight. I think this is a collective fight in the sense that we are here together, and we want to live together, and we want to share meals together, and we want to enjoy it, and it has to be really good. And I want to live in a society where you can actually, out of your salary, it might take you a year, save up to eat at a Michelin restaurant. I can tell you the people who save up to go to these high-end restaurants and sit down and spend their money on a meal like that, they are the most amazing customers you can have in your restaurant because they really made an effort. So in a way, in this world, I think there's room for all of it if we get it right. Thank you very much.